In this video, I'm going to show you how you could build a $41 Kenrith, the Returned King Commander deck. Let's get started. Quick shout out to Yasuke Uramichi. Sorry if I butchered your name. A while back they asked for a life gain Kenrith deck, so here's my best effort. Total cost of this deck was just under $41 as of the day of recording. Do note that prices fluctuate, so they may be above or below where you see them listed at in this video, and prices were checked using mtgstocks.com. Additionally, this deck is 1DH legal, meaning all the cards in the deck are $1 or under, with the exception of the commander, who can be up to $5. Kenrith, the Returned King, is a 5 to cast 5/5 with one ability for each color. You can either give creatures trample and haste for a single red, pay 1 and a green to put a plus counter on a creature, pay 2 and a white to give a player 5 life, pay 3 and a blue to let a player draw a card, or pay 4 and a black to reanimate a creature. This deck is primarily a green-white-black deck. We are splashing red and blue for a few cards, as well as to use the abilities, but mostly we're using green to put a bunch of lands onto the battlefield. We're running a very creature-heavy deck, so we're using that black to reanimate creatures for their utility. And then we're going to try and use white to weaponize that life gain to either drain our opponents out, help to pump our own creatures, as well as generate tokens. We're running a very large protection package, which allows us to generate a soft lock on the game. Very easy to generate a hard lock on the game, as you can just run an infinite mana combo and then use Kenrith's abilities to win the game from there. But we are not running the deck that way. We're also running a larger than average ramp package, hopefully allowing us to dump lots of mana into Kenrith's abilities, allowing us to win the game from there. For Accelerants, we are running 13 of them. To start off, we have Embodiment of Spring, Diligent Farmhand, and Dawn Treader Elk, all of which we can use as chump blockers and then sacrifice before damage to cheat extra lands onto the battlefield early. Secure Tribe Elder does more of the same. Viridian Emissary nets us an extra land when it dies, and Springbloom Druid nets us a land when it enters. Search for Tomorrow, Rampant Growth, and Cultivate are all sorceries that help us cheat extra lands onto the battlefield early. Search for Tomorrow comes with the upside of being able to suspend it for a single green, and Cultivate not only gets us a land to the battlefield, but also one to our hand. Harrow is similar to the Springbloom Druid in that it allows us to sacrifice a land and put 2 lands onto the battlefield. However, those lands come in untapped, so you can also use that mana either to play other cards or activate Kenrith's abilities. And then Beanstalk Giant, you're going to want to send on an adventure, allowing you to cheat an extra land to the battlefield early. And then later in the game, you can bring him out of exile for 7 mana and have a creature with power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. Biomancer's Familiar and Zerta the Dawnwaker are cost reducers, as they make all of our activated abilities cost 2 less. Therefore, we're able to use Kenrith quite a few more times each turn cycle. Next up, we're going to talk about the cards specific to our game plan. We have 21 of them. As I said, we're going to try and pump up our creatures. So we have a Johnny's Pridemate and Bloodthirsty Aerialist, both of which get a plus counter each time we gain life. The Aerialist notably has flying, so nice source of evasion there. Ageless Entity is similar, except it gets a plus counter for each life that we gain. So activate Kenrith once, and now you have a 9/9. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any built-in evasion, but we do have a couple of equipment that can get it trample. A more consistent way to win is to drain our opponents out, so we are running the Defiant Bloodlord as well as Vizkopa Guildmage. The Bloodlord allows us to turn our life gain into life loss for a single opponent, whereas Vizkopa Guildmage allows us to turn our life gain into life loss for all of our opponents. And then the Indulging Partisan is a flyer with lifelink, so it helps us get those life gain triggers, but also if we gain 3 or more life in our turn, at the beginning of our end step, each opponent is going to lose 3 life. Our last payoff card is Angelic Accord, and probably my favorite way to win. At the beginning of each end step, so not just our own but our opponents as well, if we gain 4 or more life, we get to create a 4/4 Flying Angel. If you're playing in a 4-player pod, you can use Kenrith's ability on your opponent's turn, netting you 4 angels each turn cycle, which usually leads to quick wins if your opponents are not able to deal with it. For other ways to gain life aside from Kenrith, we have a handful of life-linking creatures, as well as the Behemoth Sledge and Loxodon Warhammer, both of which pump up our creatures, give them trample, as well as lifelink. Vampire Nighthawk, Aili Eternal Pilgrim, and Teysa Envoy of Ghosts help to protect our life total, deter our opponents from swinging into us. The Nighthawk is a flying death toucher with lifelink, so helps us get some of those life gain triggers. Aili Eternal Pilgrim is mostly a death toucher that comes with a sacrifice outlet, allowing us to gain some life there. But if we ever do get to 50 or more life, we are able to pay 3, sacrifice one of our creatures, and just exile any non-land permanent we don't like. And then Teysa Envoy of Ghosts is probably the best deterrent, as it's a 4/4 with vigilance and protection from creatures, so you're able to attack with it every turn, block with it every turn. You don't have to worry about losing her in combat. But better yet, her second ability reads, whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, destroy that creature and put a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Unless your opponents are swinging for lethal, it's not very likely that they will be attacking you if she's on the table. To protect Kenrith or other important pieces, we have Apostle's Blessing, God's Willing, and Allseed of Life's Bounty, which can give protection from the color of our choice. Allseed of Life's Bounty is notably a creature with lifelink, so it can help get us those life gain triggers, as well as be reanimated by Kenrith. Other creatures that help protect us that can be reanimated are the Dauntless Bodyguard, which we can use to give Kenrith indestructible, or one of our other important creatures indestructible. The Loxodon Hierarch gains us 4 life when it enters, and we can pay green and white, sacrifice it, and regenerate all of our creatures. And then the General's Enforcer gives all of our legendary humans indestructible. The only other legendary human we are running, aside from Kenrith, is Teysa Envoy of Ghosts, which you've already seen. The General's Enforcer also comes with the upside of giving us some graveyard hate, although if you have Kenrith on the battlefield, you'll usually have better things to do with your mana. Lastly, for protection, we have Kaya's Ghost Form, which protects one of our creatures from death or exile, and then the Mirror Shield and Mask of Avacyn, which provide the equipped creature with hexproof. Next up, we're going to talk about the cards that interfere with our opponent's game plan. We are running 15 of them. To start off, we have Fleshbag Marauder, Merciless Executioner, and Plague Crafter, all of which help us control the board of creatures by forcing everybody to sacrifice a creature when they enter. Plague Crafter comes with the upside of also being able to hit planeswalkers and cards in our opponent's hands. Ravenous Chupacabra destroys a creature when it enters. Desperate allows us to destroy a creature and helps us cheat a basic land onto the battlefield tapped, while Angel of Finality allows us to exile a player's graveyard when it enters the battlefield. Caustic Caterpillar, Thrashing Brontodon, and Kasali Pride Mage can all be sacrificed to destroy an artifact or enchantment. Reclamation Sage and Acidic Slime can destroy an artifact or enchantment when they enter the battlefield. Acidic Slime can also destroy a land. Archon of Justice is a great deterrent as it's a 4/4 flyer, so it can block most small and mid-sized creatures, but when it dies is going to exile the permanent of our choice. High Priest of Penance is similar as it can destroy the non-land permanent of our choice when it's dealt damage. It can be used politically. In playtesting, I even had a game where I used Kenrith's plus ability to give it a bunch of plus counters and was swinging into opponents, forcing them to chump block, and then destroying permanents that way. Sunblast Angel allows us to destroy all tapped creatures, and Time Wipe is going to bounce a creature to our hand and destroy all creatures. For cards that provide consistency, we are running 10 of them. We have Explore, Growth Spiral, and Coiling Oracle, all of which net us an extra card, and ideally will help us get an extra land onto the battlefield a turn early. Oakham Adversary and Gaunty Lord of Luxury are both creatures that help protect us as they're 2/3 death touchers, but also can net us extra cards, in that the adversary draws us a card whenever it deals combat damage to a player, and Gaunty is going to get us access to one of the top 4 cards off an opponent's library when he enters the battlefield. Colossal Majesty and Furious Rise are going to net us extra cards as long as we're able to keep a creature with power 4 or greater on the battlefield, and Bounty of the Luxa is going to alternate once per turn, either giving us a card or 3 mana. This 3 mana is great as we're hoping to be able to keep Kenrith on the battlefield and activate any number of his abilities. Lastly, I put Kenrith, the Return King, under consistency. Probably could have also gone under game plan, but in that we're able to protect him so well, he provided us a lot of consistency in all the ways that he's able to activate abilities, returning creatures, drawing cards, gaining life, putting plus counters out, giving our creatures haste, and allowing us to be a little bit more aggressive. You can also use his abilities to help your opponents take down the King of the Hill. We also have Sun Titan, which is going to net us a card with CMC 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield when he enters and each time he attacks. Lastly, we're going to talk about the lands in the deck. We are running 41 of them. For all 5 of our colors, we're running Command Tower, Vivid Crag, Vivid Creek, Vivid Grove, and Thriving Grove. All 3 of the Vivid cards come in with a base color that they can always provide us, and then they can give us any one of our other colors up to 2 times. Thriving Grove can always give us green, and when it enters, we choose a color, and it can give us that color in addition to green. We also have Frontier Bivouac, Jungle Shrine, Opulent Palace, Sandstep Citadel, and Savage Lands, all of which give us 3 of our colors, green being one of them. To help us thin our deck, fetch the colors we need, as well as accelerate our mana production, we have Blighted Woodland, Myriad Landscape, and Krosan Verge. The Woodland allows us to get any 2 basics from our library onto the battlefield tapped. The Landscape does the same, but they have to be the same type. And Krosan Verge can only get us a Forest and Plains to the battlefield tapped. For more deck thinning and color fixing, we have Jund Panorama, Naya Panorama, Ash Barrens, Evolving Wilds, and Terramorphic Expanse. Those basics that we'll be fetching, we are running 8 forests, 6 plains, 5 swamps, 2 islands, and 2 mountains. Average converted mana cost of this deck was 2.96. There you can see the curve. Keys to victory: play without Kenrith as long as possible. I found that if I ran Kenrith out there, he was usually eating up removal and then just costing more to bring him back. So I tried to play out all my other threats, forcing my opponents into either playing their board wipe or their removal pieces on less important pieces of mine, and then bringing Kenrith out, hopefully having a recurable piece of protection for him. Secondly, don't become King of the Hill. I found that if I was able to survive until there were 3 players, I was typically able to kind of start taking control of the game with all of the pieces I could bring back and remove of my opponents. If you become threat number 1 while there are still 4 players, I found it was too mana intensive to try to control 3 other players with this build of the deck. So don't become King of the Hill until you have a good feeling that you're able to really start knocking players out. And lastly, use all Kenrith's abilities and at instant speed if possible. While I was primarily using the white and black ability, you did have access to being able to give your creatures trample and haste, put plus counters out, as well as to draw cards. Just be trying to look at what you might need. Gaining life and reanimating creature might not always be the best choice. Here are a few cards I would consider if I were to go above that $1 price point. If you want to see some more ideas, check out the link in the description below. Better yet, share your thoughts in the comments what card you would upgrade with. That way, others can see your brilliant ideas and alter to their liking. If you liked the video, you should give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. If you do, make sure you ring the bell so you don't miss any of the new weekly content from Budget Commander. Otherwise, you can check out the video in the top right or either of the playlists on the bottom.